So welcome to my review of the 2016 Shimano Aldebaran BFS, and this is the XG model. Now you're probably wondering why I have all these other reels out here. And the reason why is because they are all in some way related to this Aldebaran BFS XG. And let me explain why. Now the first reel here is the regular quote-unquote Aldebaran that came out in 2015. Now this was a very finesse-oriented reel, and it set the benchmark for being the lightest reel available at the time, which I think has been surpassed by a couple of reels from Abu GARCIA. But in 2016, Shimano released a JDM only version made for what I call ultra finesse. So this is a great reel for finesse, but if you want to go ultra finesse, you have to step up to the BFS version. And let me show you what I mean by ultra finesse. If you can look at the shallowness of the spool, probably twice as shallow as the regular Aldebaran, which was really shallow to begin with. And the major changes was of course the spool and the new brake system, which is the magnetic FTB system, which stands for Finesse Tune Brake. Other than that, most everything else is the same, other than the drag star on the BFS model is a larger 6-point drag star, while the regular model has the standard 5-point, which is smaller. And of course the color, the regular Aldebaran has kind of a matte dark charcoal finish, while the BFS version has this really slick glossy coated, I don't know what this is, pewter or gunmetal, but it looks a lot more high-end in my book. Of course you have the color anodization on the handle. So those are the big differences between the BFS and the regular Aldebaran. Now this next reel here is the 2015 Shimano Aldebaran BFS XG Limited. Now this was the last version of this particular body style, which was loved by a lot of Shimano fans. It's very compact and comfortable. As you can see, it's probably the smallest profile reel, but it was replaced by this particular model. Now, of course, other than the body, the major changes were the brake system, and I believe the level line has gotten bigger on the newer model. As you can see, it's got a big cone-shaped level wind, while the cone-shaped level wind in this model is a little bit smaller. See, it's bigger on this end, but smaller on this end. It's way bigger on this side versus this side. Now, it's not quite as radical as Daiwa's T-wing system, but Shimano has been using these tapered line guides for several years now, long before Daiwa came out with the T-wing system. Now this is a little bit lighter, and of course it's got all the new features like X-Ship and Silent Tune and the S3D spool. But as far as performance, I can say that they're very similar. This does handle backlashes a lot better. The brakes on this particular model were kind of finicky, and that's frustrating when you're dealing with light lures. So this is a perfect time to show you guys the new braking system that Shimano's come up with, which is of course the FTB system. Let me pull the scale out to show you guys. Okay, so now when it comes to finesse, particularly ultra finesse, spool weight is very important as far as the ability to cast ultralight lures far and efficiently. So with Shimano's old system, there was limitations on how light they could get the spool for the bait finesse models, and I'll show you what I mean. So while this spool itself is very light, Shimano, with the old style VBS, they had to attach the brake hub onto the spool, so that in turn increased the rotational mass and the moment of inertia when casting light lures. Now with the new system, Shimano took a look at all the systems available, and the reason they went with magnetic, and especially this particular kind of system, is because, if I can pull this out, with the new system they have, you can remove pretty much all the excess weight off of the spool to get it as light as possible. So there's no brake hub attachment. Now there is a little silent tune bearing, but that doesn't add to the rotational mass. So let's weigh these and we can see what I mean. So the old spool on the old model is 9 grams. So while that's pretty light, the new model, the spool with the bearing, only weighs 7.7 grams. Now without the bearing, Shimano says the spool weighs 7.2 grams. So that's almost 2 grams lighter for the new spool versus the old spool. And it's lighter even though you can see that the old spool actually has more portholes. The new spool is still lighter because it doesn't have to have the brake assembly attached to the spool. So that in a nutshell is what the FTB or finesse tune brake system is made for. Now just like Daiwa's magnetic system, Shimano's FTB system is what I like to call a dynamic system, meaning the magnets are not static. They don't stay in the same position. Let me show you what I mean. Now there's 4 magnets on this side of the brake hub, and then there's 4 more on this side. And when the spool is rotating at its fastest, one side of these brakes are spring-loaded, and they actually pop up to move these magnets closer to the spool to give you more braking, the maximum braking during the most important part of the cast. And that's when the spool is spinning its fastest, and that's when the overruns can occur. And it also happens on this side as well. Now, just like on the Scorpion, these magnets that have the letter N or Z, you can remove them if you want less brakes. Just like I did right there. And of course you can pop them back in, just like so. So the system is quite adjustable when you take a look at it. You can remove magnets. Of course, these magnets can be controlled from the outside, which is another advantage of the FTB system. It's in the fully extended position now, but when I turn this external dial, you can see it retracting to give less brake force. Of course, the magnets will act with this unported section of the spool, just like so. So that's the FTB system in a nutshell. Okay, so now that I got those two reels out of the way, I have two reels left on the table, other than this one. Now, the Daiwa SS Air is here because this is direct competition for the Aldebaran. When I mean direct competition, they are priced nearly identical to each other. So let's say you are looking for a bait finesse reel in the $300 range, and you're looking at Shimano or Daiwa. These two reels are direct competitors. You can see the SS Air is a lot bigger, but it is not uncomfortable to palm. Turning the handle on the SS Air, it does feel smoother in hand. It's got this really nice, solid, glassy, smooth retrieve. It's smoother than the Aldebaran. But I can say that once you've tightened the drag down and you're out fishing and there's resistance on the line, the Shimano actually is a tad bit smoother in real world fishing conditions. It's got more power too. It's probably due to the X ship and probably oversized gear in here. So with Daiwa's system, the MagForce system, it's another good way to show you guys the advantage of the Shimano FTB system. So here's Daiwa's SS Air, the spool. It's heavily ported. There's hardly any material on the inside. And it's got the short spool shaft. There's no long spool shaft protruding, but the spool is heavier than the Aldebaran spool. You're looking at 9.1 grams. And if you take the bearing off, you're probably looking at around 8.1 grams. So it's almost a gram heavier, because with Daiwa system, you have to have the rotor or the inductor, whatever you like to call it, attached to the spool, and that of course adds weight. So that's the genius of the FTB spool from Shimano. Even though the Daiwa has a higher spec, lighter spool, because they have to have the rotor attached, it winds up being heavier than the Aldebaran. Now performance wise, these two, I haven't had the chance to fish them back to back or side by side, but I will be doing so in the future because trout season is coming up, and I like to throw really light lures for trout, and I'm going to definitely fish these two side by side to see if there's any kind of performance difference between the two as far as casting distance and overall backlash control. Okay, so we have one more reel on the table, and of course this is the previously reviewed by me, brand new for 2017, Shimano Scorpion BFS. Basically, this is just a BFS version of the Scorpion or CURADO 70. And as you can see, the Scorpion has a kind of a matte finish, which I don't think is as nice. And of course, there is a big price difference between the two, about $80 the last time I checked. So what are you getting for your $80? That's a good question. So the first thing you're getting for your $80, if it's important to you, is that this is made in Japan, Aldebaran. And things made in Japan generally tend to cost more, while the Scorpion is made in Malaysia. There's nothing wrong with that, but A lot of the diehard guys, they think if it's not made in Japan, then it's not as good. And the second thing that causes a price increase is the material, the frame and body material. Now the Aldebaran is made of magnesium, which is lighter than aluminum, which the Scorpion is made of. And let's see what kind of weight savings you'll get for your 80 bucks. Okay, so Scorpion weighs in at 5.9 ounces, which is pretty light for an aluminum reel. The Aldebaran weighs in at 4.6 ounces. So you're looking at a little over an ounce lighter. Now in hand, you can definitely feel that the Aldebaran is way lighter, feels a lot lighter, but when you're out fishing, I don't think you'll really notice it as much. Now another thing that you're gonna get for your 80 bucks is a lighter spool, which is strange. The Scorpion spool has no bearing on it, but it still weighs in at 8.8 grams. So you're looking at almost 2 grams heavier. And I can see where they lost some of the weight for the Aldebaran, because the porting on this, the portholes seem to be a little bit bigger, and of course you have more porting in the center here. It looks like ovals, while the Scorpion doesn't have that. And the spool on the Aldebaran may be actually thinner overall as well, I'm not sure. But when you're holding them in hand, you can tell the difference between the spools. And of course the Scorpion does not have the oversized tapered line guide. It's got a standard small line guide, as you can see right there. And of course the Aldebaran has the oversized 6-point star drag, while the Scorpion has the smaller 5-point star drag. You're probably wondering, what's the big deal about that? Well, the way Shimano designed it is when you're finesse fishing and you're just kind of barely moving your jig or your finesse plastic, what they wanted you to do was to be able to just use your finger, get a hold of that drag star, and just fish just like this, without having to reach over and turn the handle. Just one-handed moving of the lure. So that's what the intention is for this 6-pointed oversized drag star. Now whether all that is worth $80 to you, that's up to you to decide. I actually was so pleased with the performance of this Scorpion that that's actually what prompted me to buy the Aldebaran. Now, having fished both of them, I had them out last weekend, actually a couple of weekends ago. I can't see a difference in performance for the lures I was throwing, and I think the lowest I was throwing was about a 1/16 of an ounce. Maybe they'll separate themselves if I go lower than that, but I usually don't throw lures lower than that. So performance wise, there's not much of a difference between the two that I could tell so far. Now, I took this reel, if you guys, some of you guys probably know that I went to Denver last weekend and was chasing some trout and whatnot. Unfortunately, I did not catch any fish. In fact, I didn't even see any fish when the times I was fishing. I was throwing really light lures. Now, I will include some casting footage for you just that you guys see what it looks like and how it casts on that Trout 1 rod. But fortunately, I don't feel so bad because none of the fly fishermen were catching any fish either. So hopefully I'll have more luck this winter chasing trout. And yeah, there you go, the 2016 Aldebaran BFS XG JDM only model. I'm glad I got it. And yeah, thanks a lot, guys.